The original Star Wars internet troll, SuperShadow. Before YouTube, before social media, there was a man who went by the alias SuperShadow. SuperShadow got his start on Tripod, which was like a free web hosting service popular in the 90s. I even made a Tripod site in like 1995. It was called My First Name, Codes. And I would literally just copy video game cheat codes from books I had and put them on my website. It was a fun little learning experience for a kid who was barely 10 years old. But SuperShadow's Tripod website, titled Dark Side Prequel Rumors, exploded. SuperShadow claimed to have confidential Lucasfilm informants feeding him information. He claimed to have multiple inside sources at Lucasfilm, claimed to even be employed by ILM, and he claimed to be close personal friends with George Lucas, conducting exclusive multi-part interviews with the big man himself. Now, of course, all of this turned out to be nonsense, but from the mid-90s to 2014, SuperShadow stayed on message, posting daily, throwing a bunch of text on a screen non-stop for 20 years. It started out small scale, single sentences dating back to 1993, things like the prequels being codenamed Red Tails, or that the 3 prequel films will be shot back to back, or that Ben Kenobi is a clone, and that C-3PO contains the brain of a Jedi. December 30th, 1997. Just to set the record straight, the names Darth Maul and Darth Sidious that have been circulating the WWW for months are codenames for the characters in the prequel. It is similar to the codename that George used for Return of the Jedi, Blue Harvest. Source: confidential Lucasfilm informant. This went on for years, beat by beat. SuperShadow even claimed to have an early rough draft of episode 1. It was titled The Ways of the Force. And when the actual title for episode 1 came out, he juked. When the movie came out and it was nothing like what he concocted, he juked again. SuperShadow even had fan mail. Thousands of readers would write into SuperShadow asking him questions, telling him what they thought would happen in the films, and he would respond with overwhelming confidence and even tell people that their ideas were so great that he would send them to George Lucas. In 1998, SuperShadow began publishing interviews with George Lucas. These, of course, turned out to be fake. But out of all the outlandish things posted by SuperShadow, these interviews are kind of subdued. This went on for years, thousands of baseless guesses, thousands of quote-unquote leaks, thousands of hilariously false tidbits of information, multiple interviews with George Lucas, all while claiming to be being fed by those inside sources, the confidential Lucasfilm employees. When The Phantom Menace released, SuperShadow's mission was not finished. Despite everything he wrote being completely wrong and all of his claims being an obvious ruse, he pressed on, and a sizable group of readers in the thousands continued to gobble it up. Reliable spies inside Lucasfilm have relayed to us that Darth Sidious's new apprentice in episode 2 will be a warrior called Darth Rage. As I have stated before, Rage is a cybernetic character, which means Rage is half human and half machine. In 1999, less than a month after the release of The Phantom Menace, SuperShadow claimed to have a leaked draft of episode 2's screenplay, going on to say that it was obtained by his network of spies. And once again, none of it was true. Day after day, month after month, year after year, SuperShadow pressed on. At the end of 1999, SuperShadow left Tripod, the free website hosting service, and bought his own domain, supershadow.com. And then the crazy really started to ramp up. On SuperShadow's About page, he said that he was heralded by the fans as the most important, influential, and ingenious Star Wars expert in history, and that he completely revolutionized the way Star Wars movies are created, and that his website played a crucial and pivotal role in the development of the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Many fan ideas submitted to SuperShadow were integrated by George Lucas into the final scripts, even saying that Lucas has acknowledged many times in public that SuperShadow is the best thing to have ever happened to Star Wars. And to top it off, the photo he claimed was him was actually a photo of young Ray Park. Through all of that, SuperShadow continued to answer fan mail, claimed to have spies inside of the Lucasfilm camp, and to be close friends with George Lucas. SuperShadow eventually introduced a paid section to his website, $8.50 for a 1-year subscription, $14 for 2 years, and $30 to read this nonsense for the rest of your life. When the prequel films were all but released, SuperShadow shifted focus. The well had dried up, he needed a new avenue. He then claimed that episodes 7 through 9 were being made by George Lucas. This was about 6-7 years before any rumblings of Disney acquiring the franchise and making more Star Wars movies. SuperShadow wrote stories for all the fictional episodes, once again claiming them to be legitimate, because hey, he's best buddies with George Lucas. One of the best things about SuperShadow.com was the exclusive, hey, you can write to George Lucas and he'll answer you section of the website. There are pages and pages and pages of people sending messages to George Lucas, only for SuperShadow to respond as George Lucas. George Lucas even says SuperShadow is the best and closest friend in my life. I'm willing to do whatever he says. After the unparalleled success of the Star Wars prequel trilogy, I don't think any of us can doubt the incredible creative talent of Shadow. In 2006, inside of the magazine Star Wars Insider issue 90, Pablo Hidalgo was asked in an interview, quote, "Is there any truth to the George Lucas interviews concerning episodes 7 through 9 at SuperShadow.com? Pablo went on to answer the question, quote, "Not one bit. I've often cautioned about the validity of Star Wars information found on the internet, and here's a perfect example of why. The site and the person who runs it have absolutely no relationship with Lucasfilm or George Lucas. The person who runs it has never met nor talked to George Lucas. So-called information, scoops, and interviews on the site are complete fabrications. Lucasfilm has taken action against the site several times when it has attempted to solicit fans' money under false pretenses." Close quote. SuperShadow goes down as one of, if not the first, Star Wars internet trolls. In the sea of modern misinformation, fake Star Wars leaks, and the monetization of baseless rumors, SuperShadow may seem kind of quaint by today's standards. But a lot of people bought into the nonsense, just as a lot of people buy into the nonsense today. It's important to always have your bullshit detector charged up, because there are a lot of SuperShadows still out there posting a bunch of baseless nonsense, flooding the discourse with bunk, claiming to have inside sources, claiming to be privy to leaks, and making stuff up at a rate that rivals SuperShadow. SuperShadow's real name was eventually discovered, but his website died in 2014 and is no longer available. He hasn't made a peep since then. He's never acknowledged any of this. Thousands of rumors, thousands of leaks, all proving to be completely baseless. A friendship with George Lucas that turned out to not exist. Lucasfilm spies and informants that were never real. I'd like to think that this was some hilarious Andy Kaufman routine, a way to get a laugh while messing with people. That's how I almost have to look at it. It is funny. It's hilarious if you look at it through that lens, because the alternative explanation is kind of sad. The alternative explanation is that someone out there who went by the name SuperShadow posted online for 20 years pretending to be someone he was not, all while living in a fantasy world that he constructed in his mind. I really hope it was all a joke.